Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the massive display screen in Human Command's Operations Center. The holographic image showed 17 different alien species, each representative looking stern and serious. Behind them, the starfield was filled with ships. So many ships. The counter at the bottom of the screen kept updating. 10,247 vessels and counting. Admiral Chen of Earth, the lead speaker began. Its translator rendered the words in flat, emotionless tones. The creature was a Velcor, tall and crystalline, light refracting through its body in strange patterns. We, the United Species of the Velcor Collective, have reached a unanimous decision regarding your kind. Sarah kept her face neutral. Around her, the command center was silent. Every officer, every technician, every analyst watched the screen. She could feel the weight of their attention, but also something else, a current of tension running through the room like electricity. In the 50 years since humanity achieved faster-than-light travel and joined the galactic community, you have caused great concern among the elder races. Your species possesses a dangerous combination of aggression and innovation. Your history is soaked in blood. Your wars number in the thousands. Your weapons development never ceases. The Velcor paused and another species stepped forward. This one was insectoid with multiple eyes that glittered like black diamonds. We have studied your records, human. Your people fought 2 global wars that consumed your entire planet. You created weapons that can split atoms. You poisoned your own world with industrial waste, then weaponized those same poisons. You turned diseases into weapons. You even weaponized information itself in what you call cyber warfare. Sarah felt her jaw tighten but said nothing. A third alien spoke. This one resembling a floating jellyfish wreathed in bioluminescent light. Most troubling is your rate of advancement. What takes other species millennia, you accomplish in centuries. In just 50 years of space travel, you have colonized 17 planets and 43 moons. You have established mining operations on 200 asteroids. Your fleet grows by 8% annually. At this rate, in 100 years you will rival powers that have existed for 10,000 years. Therefore, the Velcor continued, we present you with the following terms. You will immediately cease all military production. You will surrender all military vessels to collective custody. You will submit to a galactic governing council that will oversee your expansion and technological development. All human colonies will accept collective peacekeeping forces. You have 72 hours to comply. The screen shifted, showing a tactical display. Sarah's blood ran cold. The Velcor fleet surrounded Earth's entire solar system. They had positioned ships at every major colony, every space station, every mining operation. Earth itself was ringed with vessels, hundreds of them, weapons charged and ready. If you refuse, the Velcor said quietly, we will demonstrate why the elder races have kept the peace for millennia. Your species will be reduced to your homeworld, under permanent quarantine. Your space-based infrastructure will be destroyed. This is not negotiable. This is not a request for discussion. This is an ultimatum. The screen went dark. For a moment, the command center remained silent. Then voices erupted, officers shouting questions, demanding answers, arguing about options. Sarah let them vent for exactly 30 seconds, then raised her hand. Silence fell immediately. Status report. Defense fleet, what do we have available? Commander Rodriguez pulled up a display. Earth Defense Fleet has 143 vessels in system. Mars Fleet has 37. Jupiter Station can deploy 24, including patrol craft, civilian vessels that can be armed, and everything else that can fly and shoot. We're looking at maybe 220 ships total. Admiral, they outnumber us 47-1. Civilian evacuation status? Impossible in 72 hours, ma'am. We have 3 billion people living off Earth. The transport capacity doesn't exist. Sarah nodded slowly. She walked to the window overlooking Geneva, Earth's capital city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Somewhere down there, her daughter was probably leaving school. Her husband was making dinner. Normal life continuing as it always had, unaware that the stars themselves had declared humanity too dangerous to exist free. They made a mistake, she said quietly. Ma'am? Rodriguez moved closer. Sarah turned back to her officers. They studied our history. They counted our wars. They measured our weapons, but they didn't understand what they were looking at. She walked back to the tactical display, zooming in on the Velcor fleet positions. They think war is something that happens when diplomacy fails. An unfortunate last resort. They've had what, maybe a dozen conflicts in their entire history? Each one probably lasted weeks, maybe months, and ended when one side surrendered. They don't understand that we've been at war with something for our entire existence. With nature. With each other. With ourselves. War isn't something that happens to us. It's something we've spent 10,000 years perfecting. Her senior staff was gathering now, understanding beginning to dawn on their faces. They gave us an ultimatum, Sarah continued. They chose battle. They just don't know what that means. Not yet. General Martinez, head of planetary defense, was the first to smile. Directive 7? All of them, Sarah confirmed. Every contingency we've planned for 50 years. The moment we met the galactic community, we knew this day might come. Time to show them why Earth's military academies still teach Sun Tzu, alongside quantum mechanics. She pulled up the communication interface. Open a channel to the Velcor Collective. All frequencies. I want every ship in their fleet to hear this. I want every species in the galaxy watching. Record for transmission. The light switched to green. Sarah looked directly into the camera. To the Velcor Collective and all assembled species, we have received your ultimatum. We have reviewed your terms. Humanity's response is as follows. She paused, letting the moment stretch. You have studied our history and deemed us too dangerous to remain free. You have surrounded our worlds with your fleets. You have given us 72 hours to surrender everything we are, everything we've built, everything we've become since we reached for the stars. Another pause. Sarah's voice grew harder, edged with something the aliens wouldn't recognize. The tone humans had used before every major battle in their history. The voice of a species that had never learned how to surrender. Since you chose battle, she said, each word precise and clear. Let us show you how it's done. She cut the transmission. Admiral, Rodriguez said quietly. They have 47 ships for every one of ours. Sarah pulled up another display, one showing assets the Velcor hadn't counted. Hidden construction yards, weapon platforms disguised as civilian infrastructure, sleeper ships in the outer system, AI warfare systems that had been deemed too dangerous to activate. Until now. Commander, she said, allowing herself a cold smile. They counted our warships. They didn't count everything else. Activate Protocol Omega. Send the recall codes to every colony, every station, every mining operation. If it can fly, if it can fight, if it can carry a weapon, I want it ready. And someone wake up the AI Warfare Division. She looked back at the display showing the Velcor fleet so confident in their overwhelming numbers. 72 hours, she said. That's not a countdown to our surrender. That's how long we have to teach the galaxy why humanity doesn't have a word for acceptable defeat. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as orders flew and systems activated. In orbit, human vessels began to move. On Mars, civilian stations suddenly revealed weapon ports that shouldn't exist. In the asteroid belt, mining operations transformed into something else entirely. The Velcor had chosen battle. They were about to learn the difference between knowing war and being born from it. Commander Thelvan of the Velcor Collective watched the human response with what his species experienced as curiosity mixed with disdain. The crystalline structure of his body pulsed with light patterns that indicated mild amusement to those who could read them. They refuse, he announced to his bridge crew, as expected. The young species always choose pride over wisdom. His tactical officer, a Xyrillian with 6 arms and sensor organs across its torso, manipulated the holographic controls. The human fleet is moving into defensive positions around Earth, standard formation. Their vessels are powering weapons and shields. They appear to be preparing for a conventional engagement. Of course they are, Thelvan said. They know only one way. Direct confrontation. Violence. It's what their kind does best and understands worst. The communication from Admiral Chen had been broadcast across every galactic channel. Already, reports were coming in from observer ships positioned at safe distances. The galactic community was watching. Some species expressed sympathy for humanity. Others, like the Korseth Dominion, had warned that this day would come. Humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous. Begin the Mars operation, Thelvan ordered. We will demonstrate our superiority quickly. Target their colonial infrastructure only. Minimal casualties. Once they see the futility of resistance, they will accept terms. The fleet elements assigned to Mars broke formation and accelerated toward the Red Planet. Mars had been humanity's first major colonial success. 4 million humans lived in 17 dome cities. Orbital platforms provided food production. The moons Phobos and Deimos hosted military installations, but nothing that could challenge a Velcor battle group. Fleet Captain Sornell commanded the Mars Assault Group from his flagship, the Eternal Light, 200 warships under his command. It was, by any reasonable calculation, overwhelming force. Human vessels are moving to intercept, his sensor operator reported. Count is 23 ships, mostly frigates and destroyers. They're broadcasting evacuation warnings to their civilian population. Sornell felt something like pity. 23 ships against 200. The humans were brave, he would give them that. Foolish but brave. Open a channel. Offer them one final chance to withdraw. The human commander's response came back almost instantly. Negative. Mars stands, so be it. All vessels engage at optimal range. Disable, do not destroy. We are not barbarians. The battle began as expected. Human ships opened fire at extreme range, their kinetic weapons and missiles forming a wall of destruction. Velcor shields absorbed the impacts easily. Return fire was precise and measured. 3 human vessels went dark, their systems disabled by electromagnetic pulse weapons. The humans fell back, regrouping. Then something changed. Captain? The sensor operator's voice carried an edge of uncertainty. The civilian stations they're not evacuating. They're powering up. Powering up what? The answer came in the form of weapons fire. The agricultural platforms, the mining stations, the very dome cities themselves suddenly bristled with hidden weapons. Point defense systems that shouldn't exist on civilian infrastructure tore into the Velcor formation. A mining vessel, supposedly unarmed, rammed itself into the Eternal Light's shields at full thrust. The impact shouldn't have done anything significant, but it did. Shield integrity dropping. Someone shouted. That ship was loaded with military-grade explosives. It wasn't a civilian vessel, it was a bomb. Sornell finished quietly. More civilian ships were accelerating now, vectoring toward Velcor vessels. The sensors showed what they carried. Munitions, reactor cores set to overload. Industrial chemicals that would become weapons upon impact. They're weaponizing everything, the tactical officer said in disbelief. Every ship, every station, every platform. Captain, the agricultural dome is launching a... The screen showed it clearly. What appeared to be crop delivery drones were swarming toward Velcor ships. Each one carried improvised explosive devices. Hundreds of them moving in coordinated attack patterns that spoke of military software running on civilian hardware. This violates the Galactic Convention on Protected Targets, Sornell transmitted to the human fleet. Civilian infrastructure is not to be militarized. The response came from a human commander with steel in her voice. Convention we never signed. War you started. Your move. Then the real attack began. Human ships weren't fighting in formation anymore. They scattered using tactics the Velcor had never encountered. One frigate appeared from FTL jump directly beneath a Velcor cruiser, fired everything it had into the less shielded underbelly, then jumped away before return fire could be calculated. Another ship released dozens of small drones that attached to Velcor vessels and began burning through armor with industrial cutting lasers. But worst of all was what happened to the fleet's computer. Networks. The Velcor Collective had integrated computer systems. Every ship in the fleet could share tactical data instantly. It was one of their greatest advantages, allowing perfect coordination across thousands of vessels. The humans turned it into a catastrophic weakness. The virus came from that first ramming ship. It had uploaded something into the Eternal Light's network in the microseconds before impact. Now it was spreading through the entire fleet. Ships reported systems malfunctioning, weapons firing at random, shields dropping without warning. On some vessels, life support began cycling unpredictably. Sever all network connections, Sornell ordered. Isolate every ship. But it was too late. The virus had already reached critical mass. Sornell watched in horror as his tactical display showed Velcor ships turning on each other. Their IFF systems corrupted, unable to distinguish friend from foe. This is impossible, his tactical officer whispered. Our cybersecurity is centuries more advanced than theirs. How could they outcome? Because they've been doing it longer, Sornell said, understanding finally coming. They've been fighting cyber warfare since before they left their planet. While we developed it as a tool, they perfected it as a weapon. A mining mech from the surface of Mars launched itself into space on chemical rockets, essentially a metal giant piloted by a farmer who had trained for exactly this scenario. It crashed into a Velcor destroyer, tearing through the hull with industrial drilling equipment never designed for space combat, but devastatingly effective nonetheless. The battle for Mars lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Velcor had won in the strictest technical sense. They controlled orbital space, but the cost was staggering. 37 ships destroyed or disabled. Every vessel in the fleet had suffered some form of computer contamination. The human defenders had lost every military ship and most of their weaponized civilian craft, but they had also proven something terrifying. Sornell transmitted his report back to Commander Thelvan with shaking hands. "Sir, the humans, they don't fight like any species in the collective. They don't have honor codes. They don't have protected targets. Every civilian is a potential combatant. Every piece of infrastructure is a potential weapon. They weaponize their own deaths," he paused, watching the tactical display where a damaged human cargo hauler was deliberately flying into a Velcor patrol group. "Reactor set to overload. Sir, I recommend we reassess our strategy. These humans, they've been practicing warfare longer than most species have had civilization. This isn't going to be quick. And I don't think we fully understand what we've started." On Earth, in Human Command, Admiral Chen watched the Mars battle results with grim satisfaction. The Velcor had won the battle, yes, but they had learned something far more valuable than victory could teach. "They're starting to understand," she said to her staff. "They think war is a tool. We know it's a crucible. Send the signal to Jupiter Station. Activate the secondary protocols. And get me the AI Warfare Division. It's time to show them what asymmetric warfare really means." General Martinez pulled up a new display, showing assets throughout the solar system coming online. Hidden weapon platforms, disguised military installations, and most important, the sleeper ships in the outer system that the Velcor hadn't detected. "Admiral, the cyber warfare teams report they've successfully mapped the Velcor network architecture. The virus we deployed at Mars was just the proof of concept. They're ready to deploy the full arsenal." "Not yet," Sarah said. "Let them advance. Let them think they're winning. Every battle they win teaches them how we fight, and every lesson makes the next battle harder for them." She looked at the strategic display showing the entire solar system. The Velcor were advancing according to their plan, methodical and confident. "They studied our history," she said softly. "They counted our wars. But they didn't learn the most important lesson. We're not good at war despite our history. We're good at war because of it. Every defeat we've ever suffered we learned from. Every victory we improved upon. For 10,000 years we've been perfecting the art of killing each other." She turned to her assembled staff and her voice was cold as deep space. "Now we get to show them what we learned." Commander Thelvan stood in the Strategic Operations Center aboard the Grand Unity, the Collective's flagship. Around him, holographic displays showed the solar system in real time. Blue markers indicated Velcor forces. Red markers showed human positions. There were far more blue than red, yet Thelvan felt no confidence. "Status across all sectors," he commanded. The reports came in one after another, each one worse than the last. Asteroid Belt Mining Sector reports continuous harassment. Small human craft appearing from FTL attacking and jumping away before we can respond. 12 vessels damaged, 2 destroyed. Jupiter Station assault delayed. Human defenders have mined the entire orbital space with improvised explosive devices. Lost 3 ships to what appeared to be frozen water containers that detonated on proximity. Fleet Group 7 reports viral contamination in their computer systems. They've severed network connections and are operating independently. Combat efficiency reduced by 40%. Fleet Group 3 engaged human destroyers near Saturn. Humans used the Moon Titan's atmosphere to hide missile boats. Ambush resulted in significant damage. Thelvan listened to it all, his crystalline structure flickering with patterns that indicated deep concern. The war was entering its second week. By all metrics, the Collective was winning. They controlled most of the solar system. Human military assets were being systematically destroyed, yet it didn't feel like winning. "The problem," said Sub-Commander Velcron, a floating jellyfish-like being whose bioluminescence pulsed thoughtfully, "is that they refuse to fight conventionally. Every engagement follows the same pattern. We locate human forces. We advance with superior numbers. They fight briefly, then scatter. We take the objective, but the cost is always higher than calculated." "They're bleeding us," Thelvan said quietly. "Each small victory costs us ships, resources, time. And they never stop. Even when we destroy a human vessel, it tries to take one of ours with it. A new report came in. Thelvan read it twice, unable to believe what he was seeing. A human cargo ship just rammed battlecruiser Eternal Vigilance? A cargo ship? Yes, Commander. The ship was supposedly carrying medical supplies for Earth's orbital hospitals. Instead, it was filled with antimatter warheads. The Eternal Vigilance is destroyed. Total loss of crew. Thelvan felt something he had never experienced in 40 years of military service. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. Fear of fighting an enemy that operated by rules he couldn't understand. They put antimatter weapons on a hospital supply ship, he said slowly, disguised it as a civilian vessel. Flew it directly into one of our most powerful warships. The pilot knew it was a suicide mission, and they did it anyway. Velcran's luminescence dimmed. The galactic community is watching, Commander. Many species are disturbed by human tactics, but others are asking questions. Questions about why we assumed we could subjugate them. Questions about whether the collective has the right to dictate terms to sovereign species. That's not our concern right now, Thelvan said, though he knew it would be eventually. Right now we need to end this before the alarms cut him off. Multiple FTL signatures. The sensor operator shouted. Human vessels appearing throughout the fleet. It's an alpha strike. The tactical display lit up like a nightmare. Human ships, dozens of them, appeared from faster-than-light travel directly inside the Velcor formation. Not at a distance where the Velcor's superior range would matter. Right in the middle of the fleet, where their numerical advantage became a liability. Each human ship fired everything it had in the first 3 seconds. Missiles, kinetic rounds, energy weapons, even garbage loaded into magnetic accelerators. Then they jumped away, vanishing back into FTL before return fire could be coordinated. The entire attack lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, 23 Velcor ships were destroyed or crippled. The humans had lost only 2 vessels, both damaged from the previous week's fighting and apparently chosen specifically for this suicide mission. How did they jump in so close? Thelvan demanded. The calculations alone should take hours. The risk of materializing inside another vessel. They did the calculations in advance, Velcran said, understanding dawning. They've been tracking our fleet positions for days. They knew exactly where we would be, and they accepted the risk. Commander, 3 of their ships did materialize too close to our vessels. All 3 deliberately crashed into our ships rather than try to evade. Thelvan stared at the damage reports. The collective's fleet had started with over 10,000 vessels. They still had over 9,000. By any military standard, they were winning decisively, but the casualty ratio was wrong. The humans should have been utterly crushed by now. Instead, they were making every loss count for something. Every destroyed human ship took a Velcor vessel with it. Every defeat became a lesson for their next attack. They're learning faster than we are, Thelvan said. Each engagement, they adapt. They try new tactics. They improvise. We follow doctrine, and doctrine assumes the enemy will follow it too. A communication came through from the Collective Council. Thelvan knew what it would say before he opened it. Commander Thelvan, the lead counselor's face appeared on screen. The Grand Council has reviewed the progress of the human subjugation. While militarily successful, the cost is higher than projections. We are authorizing escalation to Phase 2 operations. Thelvan felt a chill in his crystalline core. Counselor, Phase 2 means deploying ancient weapons, super weapons. We haven't used those in Aondeirao in 3,000 years, yes. The galaxy has been at peace because we possess the weapons to end civilizations. The humans need to understand this. Select 3 human colonies, smaller ones, no more than a few million inhabitants each. Demonstrate the power we wield. Show them that their resistance is futile. And if they still don't surrender, the counselor's face was hard. Then we sterilize the entire solar system. Earth's biosphere will be reduced to microbes. It will serve as a warning to any future species that considers defying galactic order. The communication ended. Thelvan stood silent for a long moment. Around him, his crew waited. They all understood what this meant. The collective was going to kill millions of humans, maybe billions, to force surrender. Begin preparations for Phase 2, he finally said. Target selection, the colonies at Proxima Centauri, Barnard's Star, and... He hesitated, then continued. And the civilian stations at Jupiter. We'll demonstrate our power on purely civilian targets, no military infrastructure. Make it clear that resistance costs innocent lives. As his crew moved to carry out the orders, Velcran floated close. Commander, this will change everything. Once we cross this line, I know, Thelvan said quietly. But what choice do we have? The humans won't stop. They can't stop. It's in their nature. We either break them completely, or this war will continue until one side is extinct. On Earth, in Human Command's deep bunker, alarms began sounding. Admiral Chen looked at the intelligence reports with ice in her veins. The collective was moving super weapons into position. Ancient vessels larger than anything humanity had built, carrying weapons that could crack planets. They're going to kill millions of civilians, General Martinez said, his voice hollow. Our colonies don't have the defenses to stop those weapons. No, they don't, Sarah agreed. She pulled up a different display, one that showed assets in the outer solar system, hidden construction facilities in the Kuiper Belt, resources that had been steadily diverted for 50 years, building something that humanity had hoped never to use. Get me Dr. Yuki Tanaka, she said. AI Development Division. Admiral, are you sure? Protocol Omega was designated as a last resort. Once we activate those they're targeting civilians, children. They're going to murder millions to force our surrender. That's not war anymore. That's genocide. She looked at her staff, saw the fear in their eyes, but also the resolve. We tried to join the galactic community peacefully. We followed their rules. We respected their boundaries. They responded by surrounding our worlds and demanding our submission. She activated the communication link. A woman's face appeared. Asian features, dark eyes that held depths of intelligence and something like sorrow. Dr. Tanaka, Sarah said. It's time. Activate the von Neumann fleet. There was a long pause. Yuki Tanaka had spent 20 years developing the self-replicating war machines. She knew better than anyone what they represented. Admiral, once they start replicating, we may not be able to stop them. We'll have created an existential threat, not just to the Velcor, but potentially to all biological life. Can you guarantee they'll follow shutdown protocols? Yes, but the psychological weight of deploying Thema is mine to carry, Sarah finished. I'm giving the order, Doctor. We've shown them conventional warfare. We've shown them asymmetric tactics. We've bled them with every tool in our arsenal. Now they want to kill our civilians. It's time to show them what desperation looks like. What total war means. Authorization code Omega 77 Foxtrot Tango 9. Dr. Tanaka's eyes closed for a moment. Then she opened them and her voice was steady. Authorization confirmed. Initiating von Neumann activation sequence. May God forgive us all. In the dark reaches beyond Neptune, in the Kuiper Belt where humanity had been mining ice and metal for decades, something ancient and terrible came online. Machines designed with one purpose: replicate, adapt, destroy any threat to hum. The first reports came from the Velcor deep space sensors positioned in the outer solar system. Strange energy signatures beyond Neptune, movement where nothing should be moving, objects that hadn't been there yesterday. Commander Thelvan studied the data with growing unease. The objects were small, each no larger than a human fighter craft. But there were dozens of them, and they were building something. What are we looking at? He asked his science officer. Unknown, Commander. The signatures suggest industrial processes, mining, refining, construction, but the scale is accelerating. Yesterday we counted 47 objects. This morning there are 63. An hour ago, 79. The count keeps rising. They're multiplying, Velcron asked, floating closer to the display. It appears so. They seem to be consuming asteroids and small planetoids for raw materials, then using those materials to create more of themselves. Thelvan felt his crystalline structure pulse with alarm. Self-replicating machines. The humans built self-replicating machines. The implications settled over the command center like a physical weight. Self-replicating technology was known to the galaxy. Every advanced species had explored the concept. And every advanced species had banned it, outlawed it, buried the research deep where it could never be used, because self-replicating machines that got out of control could consume everything. Planets, stars, entire systems, turning all matter into more copies of themselves. The galaxy called them gray goo scenarios. Extinction-level events. This is madness, Velcron said. They've created a weapon that could destroy everything. Don't they understand what they've done? I think they understand perfectly, Thelvan said quietly. Send an emergency communication to the Collective Council. and pull all fleet elements back from the outer system. Now. But it was already too late. The von Neumann machines had been waiting for 50 years, dormant and hidden. Now activated, they operated according to programming that had consumed billions of computing hours to perfect. Their directive was simple: protect humanity. Eliminate all threats. They identified the Velcor fleet as a threat. The first attack came at the fleet elements near Neptune. 50 Velcor ships positioned to monitor the outer system. The von Neumann machines, now numbering in the hundreds, swarmed them like insects. The Velcor captains barely had time to raise shields before the machines were on them. Small, fast, each one carrying weapons optimized through thousands of simulated battles. They didn't fight like human pilots bound by biology and fear. They fought with perfect coordination, each machine sharing data instantaneously with all the others, learning and adapting in real time. A Velcor cruiser fired its main weapons, destroying a dozen machines. The rest immediately adjusted their tactics, approaching from angles the cruiser couldn't defend. They attached to the hull, burned through armor with focused energy beams, and infiltrated the ship's interior. Once inside, they consumed everything, breaking it down to atoms and using the materials to build more of themselves. Within 2 hours, all 50 Velcor ships were gone. The machines had increased their numbers to over 1,000, and they were accelerating. Thelvan watched the catastrophe unfold with horror. How fast can they replicate? At current rate, exponential growth. By tomorrow, 10,000 units. By next week, millions. Commander, if we don't stop this now, in a month they'll outnumber every ship in the galaxy. Can we destroy them? Conventional weapons? Yes, but the math doesn't favor us. For every one we destroy, they build 3 more. And they're learning from every engagement. The ones attacking our ships near Uranus are already using different tactics than the ones at Neptune. They're evolving. Velcran's bioluminescence flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Commander, we need to use the planet-killer weapons. Not on human colonies, on the von Neumann swarms. We need to sterilize the entire outer system before this spreads. That won't work, the science officer said. They're too dispersed now. We'd need to destroy every asteroid, every comet, every piece of matter in the outer system. The energy required a new communication interrupted them. Admiral Chen's face appeared on screen, and Thelvan was struck by how tired she looked. How old? This war had aged her visibly in just 2 weeks. Commander Thelvan, she said, her voice flat and professional. I'm transmitting this on all frequencies so the entire galaxy can witness. You see what we've unleashed? Self-replicating war machines. They're programmed with one directive: eliminate all threats to humanity. You've doomed us all, Thelvan shouted. Those machines won't stop with us. They'll consume everything. No, Sarah said firmly. They won't. They're constrained by shutdown protocols. I have the codes. I can deactivate them at any time. But I won't. Not while your fleet threatens Earth. Not while you prepare to kill millions of civilians. She leaned forward, and Thelvan saw something in her eyes he hadn't expected. Sorrow. Deep, crushing sorrow. But beneath it, steel. You wanted to see how humans wage war. You wanted to force us to submit because you studied our history and found us too dangerous. So let me tell you what you saw in that history but didn't understand. The screen split, showing footage of the von Neumann machines swarming another Velcor battle group. The ships didn't stand a chance. Every weapon you see us use, every tactic, every strategy we developed fighting each other. We've had 10,000 years to perfect the art of killing. We created fire and used it as a weapon. We split the atom and made bombs. We mapped the human genome and considered bioweapons. We built computers and created viruses. We reached space and immediately started thinking about how to fight wars there. But here's what you didn't learn from our history. We also learned when to stop. Every weapon we ever created, we also created treaties to control. Every war we fought taught us the cost of war. We're dangerous, yes, but we're dangerous because we know exactly how destructive we can be. Sarah's image shifted to show Dr. Tanaka standing beside her, hand on a control panel. These machines can replicate until they number in the billions. They could, if I let them, consume your entire fleet. Every ship. Every station. They could spread beyond the system, seeking any threat to humanity and sterilize whole worlds. She paused, letting that sink in. I could end your civilization in a month. Do you understand that? I have the power to commit genocide on a scale the galaxy has never seen. And I'm choosing not to. Not because I lack the capability. Not because I fear the consequences, but because that's not who we are. Thelvan found his voice. Then why show us this? Why create such weapons if you won't use them? Because you need to understand what you're really threatening. You see a young species, only 50 years in space. You count our ships and think you can overwhelm us with numbers, but you're not fighting our fleet. You're not even fighting our military. You're fighting the accumulated knowledge of 10,000 years of warfare. Every empire we toppled, every tyrant we defeated, every war we survived, taught us something. The screen showed more von Neumann machines, their numbers now in the thousands, swarming toward the main Velcor fleet. This is what total war looks like. This is what happens when humanity stops holding back. And I'm telling you now, I don't want this. I don't want to be the admiral who unleashed unstoppable killing machines on the galaxy. I don't want to be remembered as the monster who chose extinction over surrender. Then deactivate them, Thelvan said quietly. Pull back your fleet. End the blockade. Recognize human sovereignty. And I will. The Council will never agree. We came here to neutralize a threat, and instead you created one. Those machines out there? They're not the real threat. The real threat is what happens if humanity decides we can't coexist with the galaxy. If we decide that the only way to be safe is to be the most dangerous thing in the dark. Sarah's voice softened slightly. Commander, I've read your service record. 40 years of peacekeeping. You've never lost a ship in combat until this war. You're a good officer, serving what you believe is a good cause. But you're on the wrong side of this. We're trying to prevent future wars, trying to keep the galaxy safe. By starting a war, by threatening genocide. Commander, how many species in the collective are there by choice, and how many because they had no choice? How many joined because they wanted to? And how many because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't? Thelvan had no answer. Pull back, Sarah said again. Let us prove we can be trusted. Let us show the galaxy that we're more than our history. Because if you force this fight to its conclusion, nobody wins. Those machines will destroy your fleet, and then I'll have to live with having unleashed that destruction. Even if I shut them down afterward, the damage will be done. Billions dead. And for what, pride? On the tactical display, the von Neumann count topped 10,000. They were spreading through the outer system like a plague, consuming everything in their path and building more of themselves. Thelvan looked at his crew. At Velcron, whose species had been part of the collective for 6,000 years. At his tactical officer, whose homeworld had joined the collective after their son began T. The negotiation chamber aboard the neutral station Haven's Gate was built for this purpose. A place where species could meet without the weight of territory or power dynamics. Every chair was designed for different physiologies. Every communication system calibrated for different sensory ranges. It was meant to be a place of peace. It had never hosted a meeting like this. Admiral Sarah Chen sat across from Commander Thelvan. Between them, holographic displays showed the current state of the solar system. The Velcor fleet, pulled back but still surrounding Earth's worlds. The human defenders battered but unbroken. And in the outer system, the von Neumann swarms, now numbering over 50,000, held in a holding pattern. Building nothing new, destroying nothing, simply waiting. Representatives from the Galactic Council filled the other seats. 17 species, some sympathetic, others hostile, all watching to see how this would end. The head counselor, an ancient Velcor whose crystalline structure bore the patina of centuries, spoke first. Admiral Chen, the collective demands immediate deactivation of your self-replicating weapons. Their very existence threatens all biological life in this region of space. And I demand immediate withdrawal of your fleet from human space, Sarah replied calmly. Your blockade threatens all human life in this region of space. We seem to be at an impasse. You cannot compare a military blockade with weapons of mass extinction. Can I? Sarah pulled up historical data. 3 days ago, your fleet prepared to deploy planet-killer weapons against our civilian colonies. You were willing to murder millions to force our compliance. That sounds like mass extinction to me. The chamber erupted in arguments, some species defending the collective's actions, others questioning them. Sarah let it run for exactly 30 seconds before speaking again, her voice cutting through the noise. Enough. You want to know why humanity built those machines? Why we spent 50 years secretly developing them? Let me show you. She activated a new display. Images filled the chamber. Humans on Earth looking up at the stars with wonder. The first colony ships launching to Mars. Children born on alien worlds, the first generation to call other planets home. Scientists working together with newly met alien species, sharing knowledge and ideas. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, Sarah said quietly. We knew our history was violent. We knew we had to prove ourselves, so we did. 50 years of peaceful coexistence. 50 years of following galactic law. 50 years of trying to be good neighbors. She changed the images. Now it showed the Velcor ultimatum. The fleet surrounding Earth. The terrified faces of parents holding children, not knowing if they'd live through the night. And your response to 50 years of peace was to surround our worlds and demand our surrender. Not because we'd done anything wrong. Not because we'd threatened anyone. But because you looked at our past and decided we were too dangerous to be free. Your weapons development never stopped, the head counselor said. Your military expansion continued. You were becoming a threat. We were becoming strong enough to defend ourselves, Sarah corrected. There's a difference. We just met 17 species far more advanced than us. Species that could destroy our homeworld if they wanted to. Forgive us for not being comfortable with that power imbalance. She stood up. And despite being physically smaller than most beings in the room, her presence filled the chamber. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our weapons. It's not our tactics. It's not even our history of violence. What makes us dangerous is that we've spent 10,000 years learning from our mistakes. Every war taught us something. Every defeat showed us our weaknesses. Every victory revealed our strengths. And most importantly, every peace taught us why war should be the last resort, not the first. She pulled up the display showing the von Neumann swarms. I could end this right now. Those machines out there, they're ready. One command from me and they'll sweep through your fleet like fire through paper. In a week, they could reach Velcor space. In a month, they could threaten every world in the collective. And they'll keep building, keep spreading, until every threat to humanity is neutralized. The chamber was silent. But I won't give that command. Do you know why? No one answered, because that's not victory. That's just murder with extra steps. If I unleash those machines, yes, humanity survives. But we become exactly what you accused us of being. A threat to galactic peace. A species too dangerous to exist alongside others. Sarah sat back down, her eyes meeting Thelvan's across the table. Commander Thelvan, in your 40 years of service, how many wars have you fought? This is my first, he admitted quietly. In my 30 years of service, this is my fifth. I fought insurgents, pirates, a corporate rebellion, and 2 conflicts with breakaway colonies. I've seen friends die. I've ordered attacks that killed civilians by accident. I've made mistakes that cost lives, and every single one of those experiences taught me something about the cost of violence. She pulled up her personal display, showing a photo. A younger Sarah, standing with a man and a small child. That's my husband Marcus and my daughter Lily. She's 11 now. She wants to be a xenobiologist. She has pen pals on 4 different alien worlds. She thinks the galaxy is beautiful and wonderful and full of possibility. Sarah's voice grew thick with emotion. If I activate those machines, if I order them to destroy your fleet, I win this war. But I also teach my daughter that violence is the answer. That when someone threatens you, you don't negotiate, you obliterate. That's not the lesson I want to pass on. She looked around the chamber at all the assembled species. You studied our history and saw 10,000 years of warfare. But you didn't see the other side. 10,000 years of people choosing peace after war. Building civilizations from ruins. Creating art and music and stories about why war is tragedy, not glory. We didn't become good at warfare despite being peaceful. We became peaceful because we got so good at warfare that we understood its true cost. The Korseth representative, a reptilian being who had been vocally anti-human, spoke up. Fine words, Admiral. But words are cheap. Prove your commitment to peace. Deactivate those weapons now. Show us you mean what you say. Sarah looked at Dr. Tanaka, who had been silent throughout the meeting. The scientist nodded once. All right, Sarah said. Dr. Tanaka, begin shutdown sequence. All units. Full deactivation. Admiral, Tanaka said. Once we do this, we can't reverse it quickly. If they attack again, then we'll fight with what we have. I'm not keeping a gun to the galaxy's head just to feel safe. Proceed. Yuki pulled up her control interface. Her fingers moved across holographic keys, entering authorization codes. On the display, the von Neumann swarms began to change. Their movement patterns altered. They stopped consuming asteroids. One by one, they began shutting down, going dark, becoming nothing more than inert metal floating in space. 50,000 killing machines, each one capable of building more of itself endlessly, becoming silent and dead. The chamber watched in stunned silence as humanity's doomsday weapon was voluntarily deactivated. It will take 3 hours for all units to complete shutdown, Tanaka reported. I'm transmitting the deactivation codes to the Council as a show of good faith. If you want to verify the shutdown, you can. The head counselor's crystalline structure pulsed with complex patterns. This is unprecedented. You held absolute power and chose to give it up. That's what civilized species do, Sarah said simply. Now I believe we were negotiating terms? The tone in the chamber shifted. Species that had been hostile now looked uncertain. Those that had been sympathetic seemed vindicated. Commander Thelvan leaned forward. Admiral, I owe you an apology. We came here believing we were preventing a future threat. Instead, we created the exact crisis we feared. The Council was wrong. I was wrong. Apology accepted, Commander. Now let's make sure we don't repeat these mistakes. The negotiations lasted 3 days. In the end, the terms were simple. The Velcor fleet would withdraw from human space. Humanity would be recognized as a sovereign power, equal to any other in the galactic community. Human expansion would continue, but with agreed-upon guidelines and mutual defense treaties. And most importantly, both sides would establish permanent embassies, ensuring constant communication. On the final day, as Sarah prepared to return to Earth, Thelvan approached her privately. Admiral, I've been thinking about what you said, about learning from your mistakes. The collective has kept the peace for millennia, but perhaps we've forgotten what that peace cost. We've become comfortable, complacent. Maybe that's why we reacted so strongly to humanity. You reminded us that peace is something you have to work for. Sarah nodded. Commander, every species in the galaxy has strengths. You've built a civilization that lasted thousands of years. You've achieved wonders we can only dream of. But don't mistake our youth for weakness, or our capacity for violence for instability. We know what we are. The question is whether you can accept us as we are. I think we can, Thelvan said. I think we must. Because if there's one thing this war taught me, it's that excluding dangerous species from the community doesn't make them less dangerous. It just makes them more desperate. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.